Welcome back to Coach's Corner. This week we're at Mattucci's restaurant in downtown Mount Carmel. A tradition since 1934, still a family-owned business. If you know anything about Mount Carmel, it's one of the true traditions. Phil Gergen's with us right now. Phil, one of the historians, a former high school teacher. He was also an assistant principal for a while. And no one helps us more as far as high school sports with one school than Phil does at Mount Carmel. And he's the guy that lets us know every week how they're doing. 807 wins and counting. That's fifth most in the country. Maybe the Red Tornadoes can get a little bit closer with a win this week against Southern Columbia. Phil, thanks for having us aboard.
Thank you.
Always good to have him aboard. Now, we're getting ready to talk about traditions. It doesn't get much better than Mount Carmel. Ever since I was a child, I kept hearing about Blakely or Valley View, and yet they would have problems with this team down the line. What is it about Mount Carmel that's so special? Let's talk to their head coach, Carm, Defrancesco. 6 state titles for Southern Columbia, 13 visits to the state title game, 5 state championships for the Red Tornadoes. What does this rivalry mean for the area, and what does it mean to you?
Well, what it means is respect. I think each program knows there's a mutual respect, and the area takes pride in our program and theirs. So it's a matter of respect.
Great games, too, over the years, especially since you've been back.
We don't quit. See, our kids never quit. They never quit. When we play Southern, everything's on the line. Everything's kind of like turned up like an extra notch. And our kids play hard. Their kids play hard. And it's like a state championship game.
You know, as far as Mount Carmel, I know it's embedded in you. You were a star player. Jazz Dimmick, talk about that whole connection from Jazz to Whitey to Brendan and you coming back. I mean, it's a coach's thing. It's a player's thing. And it's something that, unless you've been really part of Mount Carmel culture, you're not really sure what it's about.
Jimmy, you're exactly right. Here's what people have to know. This program is bigger, and all of us that have been here, the players, the coaches, the assistant coaches, our program is bigger than all of us. And everybody that has been here understands that. And I think that's the most important thing. We're just a small chain in that, a small link in that chain. And we understand that.
Now, you come to a practice and you have people hanging out pretty much every game. They'll practice the winningest program in the state. What does it mean to the community?
Well, it's everything. When you look around now, I grew up here 40 years ago, and the coal mines were in operation. We had 17,000 people. I think we have 5 now, Jim. And I think right now, our community, the school to our community, and the sports program to our community is everything. And I think that's the way we operate.
Now, when was that instilled in you? Who first put that into you, that Mount Carmel is a special place to grow up and play sports?
Well, it happened with Coach Jazz, and my parents were real good friends. So when he got the job here in 1962, I was 9 years old, and we started to follow him immediately. And I don't think I ever missed a game. And then when he asked me to help out in 1980, I guess it was just I was doing it part-time, and I got hooked. And once you get hooked, and it's been a career for me now.
And finally, your dad still watches these practices.
You know, he comes down now, Jim, and he's watching practice, and he's 85, and I just love to have. He's proud. He's proud of us and me, and he always wanted me to come back home, and I'm just so happy for him.
So Mount Carmel area in Southern Columbia getting ready for the big game on Friday, and then replacing a guy like Jazz Dimmick is what Whitey had to do, and it rarely happens that it works so seamlessly. Give me an instance where it's worked and other maybe where it doesn't go so well.
Well, I think, first of all, the pressure to take over programs that aren't too good and get instant gratifications. I know at Pittsburgh and Riverside that worked for me. Up at Valley View, when Frank Pizzetta took over Pop Bear Hands at Blakely, he was able to carry on the tradition. Down at Dallas, Old Forge High School, down at Gigerelli. 275 wins. I think they've had 9 or 10 coaches in the last 15 years. We talked about Dallas this year. Coach Giroux taking over for Teddy Jackson. Another place where it worked, a guy by the name of George Curry took over for Campbell and some other guy, George Curry, and he's continued to roll the tradition. But I'll tell you, a lot of pressure, Jimmy, on guys taking over great programs.
Well, Whitey did that and came into 1993, and Jazz has almost 300 wins. What was it like stepping into this situation as a head coach? Because it could have been tough.
Believe it or not, it was a very good transition, simply because I wasn't one of the candidates. And I was sitting at home, and someone else was actually hired before, and I got a phone call from Coach Dimmick that I might want to think about applying, because he was writing a recommendation for me here at Mount Carmel. And when I did, I got the opportunity to sit with him, talk to him, and He really, what he did with his players, gave him confidence, and he gave me that confidence, and it was a move I had to make.
All right, we have some video of Jazz in his day, and of course the great nickname, Joe Jazz Diminick. His sons were good players. The team had good players. Carm Defrancesco was a former player there. What did he do? What did you know about Jazz that the community still reveres this man?
Well, I knew Jazz going back to when I was a manager in Tamaqua, putting flags on the field when he was coming into the stadium, and then as a player I had the opportunity to play against. I watched Gary play with Bobby Veach, and then I played against Joey and Kenny in high school, and you know, just seeing those teams and seeing the way they carried themselves, it was always intriguing. And I actually played on the team that broke their 35-game win streak. We were at Tamaqua.
And they still brought you in.
They still, but the man is just so special. He, you know, I don't know how many guys he would have welcomed the way he did me. He took me into his office. He said, "There's the playbook." And the thing at Tamaqua, when we beat him, I listened to him at clinics, and we were beating him with his game. And I think maybe that was one of the reasons why he kind of led me this way, because we were 2-0 at Tamaqua against them. And
so maybe you know a little bit more of what it's all about here with Mount Carmel getting ready for their big game with Southern Columbia. Whitey, thanks for your thoughts on how we revere Jazz in this area. And of course, the big game, it's coming up this Friday. It's Mount Carmel area and Southern Columbia. It is Friday at 7 o'clock on WNEP-TV. We'll talk to the Tigers head coach Jim Roth when we return on the corner. Mattucci's restaurant in downtown Mount Carmel. Hungry for some food, but also hungry for a big win as Mount Carmel takes on Southern Columbia this week. Great tradition. We talked about it from a Mount Carmel point of view. How about Southern Columbia? 13 trips to the state title game since they started this whole shebang. And in a 20-year run, considering how slow Southern Columbia started with Jim Roth under the helm, it's been a great long ride for the Tigers. Jim Roth, our next guest, coming up on Coach's Corner. We're here with Southern Columbia head coach Jim Roth. And Jim, this is always one of the best games on the schedule year in and year out, not for us, but also for you. Southern Columbia, Mount Carmel, multiple state championships, 11 between you guys. What does it mean for your program when you get ready to take on your buddies down the road year in and year out?
Well, it's the game for us, I guess. It's probably the biggest game that we've had consistently for quite a few years now. And I remember when we started this game many years ago, and our program, I think, was still on the rise at that time, and we had done well at the Class A level. Mount Carmel the same in Double A. A lot of people questioned if it was the right move, and you know, win, lose, or draw, my feeling was this is what high school football is all about.
And you come out a better team after a game like that.
Yeah, but it's what it's all about as far as giving the kids the opportunity to go out in front of, you know, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 fans in a local rivalry. And have that feeling and that excitement to play in a game like that. And obviously when it's a good opponent like Mount Carmel is, and with that tradition, you're not going to win it every year.
No.
But again, the experience of playing that game, the experience the kids get from it, and in terms of just going through that atmosphere, but also the experience from a playing standpoint, you know, we're a better program. As we've evolved over the years and we've played a tougher schedule, it's helped our program because your kids are going to respond to the competition they have to compete against, and Mount Carmel's a good example of that.
And it's a state playoff game essentially early in the year.
It is. It was a little bit later there for a couple of years, and now it's back to week 3.
Yeah.
I kind of like it early, just because, you know, earlier, you know, the weather's generally a little nicer, and
players are healthy.
And then the other thing about that is, not that either of us have had a tradition of struggling through seasons, but when it's early like that, everybody's still looking for big things, you know, and it's still a big game.
Right. You talk about their tradition, and it goes back, I remember in the 60s, them winning Eastern Conference championships. Jazz was there, they had their team. But your program took a little longer to get coming. I think people know the story, but talk about when you guys first came together. A lot of your coaching staff is still here. It wasn't like instantaneous Southern Columbia got on the map. It took you guys a little while.
Right, a number of us have been here since the early 80s, when a number of us started in the early 80s, and we reached 27 losses in a row before we won a game, and you know, then things basically you know, kind of took off for us. And the one thing that has changed over the years again is the schedule. You know, we've upgraded the schedule through time, and you know, we were winning games you know, against predominantly A schools at one time, and now the majority of our schedule is AA competition, and we have a couple AAA teams on the schedule. So, you know, that's been an evolution, but you know, I guess the thing that we're proudest about in our program is the consistency over the years. Finishing second a number of times at states was obviously very, very difficult. It's the hardest game to lose, but the thing that we could always kind of fall back on and feel proud about was the fact that we're there knocking on the door every year and competing for a state championship. And you know, Mount Carmel's been that way, and the last few years, obviously, they haven't gotten back there. But just with the tradition of the two programs, it's just become a huge game because of the level, the closeness of the communities, and also, if you drive around the Southern Columbia School District, you can see a number of developments and newer housing, and it just so happens that we have a lot of Mount Carmel natives or originals that live in our school district now. So there's really there are a lot of ties between the communities.
Probably the best example of this program is the guy number 27 at the University of Pittsburgh, Henry Hanofsky, who won 4 state titles at Southern Columbia. His dad played for Mount Carmel, also played in the NFL, so you go about 8 miles away and you're in a different school district. Whitey, you help bring this little together game with every year with Mount Carmel and Southern, but you're saying that Mount Carmel's biggest tradition may not even be Southern Columbia.
It's definitely the coal bucket game, Shamokin. I mean, and I think the other coal region game has evolved, and that's Blue Mountain and Pottsville, and that happens this weekend.
And you're going to give me a winner?
Well, the landscape's changed in District 2 with the playoff systems, the bigger schools and the smaller schools, but Riverside Old Forge has to be one of the best rivalries. And when I went to Pittston area against Coach Marenka for the 6 years we were there, Wyoming area, Pittston area for the Bell, big rivalry.
East Stroudsburg South and Stroudsburg also playing Thanksgiving Day, and that is a look back at some traditions. Let's look ahead. Week 3 coming up, big predictions coming up. Stick around. Coach's Corner from Mattucci.